Stream there. Stream there. What's going on, people? We're all over the place today. We are all over the place today. I want to jump back on. I had the craziest thing happen to me. I had get the key, my thing over here. Had the craziest thing happen to me yesterday. I was on TikTok Live and they said I violated something, so they took me off of TikTok Live, shut me down because they said I was talking about something about guns or something. And I'm like, what the heck? And so I'm I'm back on Instagram and I'm back on TikTok. It was just some crazy stuff. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. They just do what they got to do, and I didn't get on TikTok and start screaming and yelling at people. I can't believe y'all did this to me. One of the things that you're going to learn as you begin to move forward, there are two battles that you're going to have: the battle to respond and the battle to be quiet. And they're both kind of strange because a lot of times we want to respond to stuff that really has no reason to respond. You have no reason to respond to it, but you want to respond to it. And when you really think about it, you don't know why you want to respond to it. You just know you need to respond to it. It's like I was watching this video today, and the police pulled this young lady over, and she said they said, you don't have a license plate? She said, yes, I do. They said, no, you don't. Yes, I do. So they called in some other police, like, traditionally, like they do for backup, because they thought she was being belligerent, when in actuality she wasn't actually being belligerent. What happened was she had an old car and the license plate was to the right and not in the front, and the police officer said he didn't see it. But she's constantly screaming, see, I told y'all, I told y'all, I told y'all, I told y'all. Ladies and gentlemen, hear me very closely. Some stuff doesn't deserve your energy or your power or your spirit or your power or your anointing. It doesn't deserve it. So why do we say it? We say it because we want to make sure that somebody knows what we're dealing with and who we are. So that being said, let me move you over here. That being said, let's get started today with superpowers. I want to talk about superpowers. So put you guys right here. Talk about superpowers. Yeah. Yeah. Not gonna work. Sorry guys, I gotta sit here. I was trying to put you a little closer, but unfortunately it's not working. We're gonna talk about superpowers today. Today we want you to go to Philippians. We're gonna talk about how to operate at this next level. A lot of us that have been actually following me have dealt with a couple of things that are going on in your lives, and some of you have seen changes and transformation. Some of you are going, I want to see a new change. I want to see things happen. The couple of things you got to realize. Number one, this takes dedication to the focus. Paul, if you have not read Romans the 6th chapter, 7th chapter, and the 8th chapter, or Philippians 1, 2, and 3, some of this stuff is going to be, okay, I don't remember that. I don't realize that. But I want you to understand something about who you are. You are a powerful being. You are probably one of the most powerful beings that have walked this planet. Now, for those of you that don't understand that, I'm talking about who you are spiritually. In order to decrease your power, we have to pull you from your power source and put you in a place where you are just like everybody else. There's a movie that the Incredibles, and at the end of Incredible, the villain he said, if everybody's a super, then nobody's super. The key is we have to dilute your ability to be special, and we have to dilute your ability to be something that is more powerful than everybody else. So everybody thinks the same way. Everybody acts the same way. You're inundated with information that makes you just like everybody else, when in actuality, you are just as different as everybody's fingerprints. So when we talk about that when it comes to how God moves in your life. How do you move in the spirit? How God does what he needs to do. So we're on, for those of you that don't know, my name is William Dallas, and as you can see, where is it? Here, it's here. As you can see here, it's Uncle Dallas Speaks. I've been in ministry for over 30 years. I've been in counseling, coaching, all the accolades that you need. But the one thing I've done is I've understood the relationship between religion and spirituality. And the relationship needs to be identified and isolated, because a lot of us are holding on to a person's idea of how you move instead of moving in the way that God has called you to move. And it's real strange. That's why relationships are crazy right now. That's why the society is crazy. Everything is crazy because our battles, our challenges, our fears, our disappointments are all based on what someone has shown you as, or what they believe is true. For example, I have people that say, I don't want to go in the water. My wife and I scuba dive. I don't want to scuba dive. Why don't you want to scuba dive? I'm afraid of water. You've never been in water. You've never had an incident with water. But everything that you have is based on somebody's idea about water. First thing we did when we jumped into the water for scuba diving is like, what about sharks? We never thought about anything else other than sharks, because we watched Jaws, The Meg, Piranha, all these movies that cause you to fear the next level. So we go down there and there's this wonderful world. How many of you right now have incidences and situations in your life that you don't operate in because of someone convincing you to be afraid? You've never done the scientific research. You've never dealt with it yourself. You've never experienced it. You are afraid. So what happens is we have to dilute your superpower. That's number one. Number one is to carry fear. Hebrews, the 12th chapter, said, lay aside every weight. So one, we have to carry fear. Two, we have to stay attached to our past. Learn one gift, and that gift is to let it go. I had a friend of mine say, my walkaway, she said, my walkaway game is amazing. Your walkaway game has to be tight. You have to be willing to let the thing go. I don't care if they said it about you. I don't care if they hurt you. I don't care what they did. You have to be willing to let it go. Why? Because whatever happened to you, however tragic it may be, I don't want to disrespect it, because I know tragedy does happen, and there's some things that are unfair, and I know there's some things that really, really, really should be put into a situation where you have to realize what it actually is, but you have to let it go. You have to let it go. If you don't let it go, you carry it around and it slows your mouth. Number one, got to get you fear. Number two, got to get you backed up or stay connected to your past. You got to be. So when I talk about these two things, I talk about the two things that I'm to talk about the two things that take place. The first thing that takes place is, how do you move forward? So let me just do this right quick. For those of you that are attempting to watch us and follow us, we're on YouTube. We're on YouTube /Higher Talk. Okay? Higher Talk. So now, let me tell you the story about them throwing me off of TikTok. It was really crazy. Yeah, it's on YouTube. So at the link in the bottom down there. Yeah, there we go. Let me tell you about them throwing me off TikTok. So I don't know what I said. I said some word. I was talking about superpowers yesterday, and I said some word, and that word, whatever the word was, boom, TikTok just goes off. I mean, just shuts down. And so I go back in, I try to come back in, they go, no, you violated TikTok community guidelines and da-da-da-da. So I go in and I read what the guidelines are. The guidelines said I was talking about either about guns, I was talking about drugs. It talked about this stuff that was so far from what I was talking about. There must have been a key word, and that key word knocked us out. Now, I know that they've created an algorithm, and I know that algorithm may not be foolproof. So that means that algorithm, it doesn't think. We're talking about AI. AI doesn't think. AI goes through 1,000,001 commands and goes, I isolated this, and this isolation means that this is what's going on. So I've said a word or I did something and it made TikTok kick me off. And they said, you can't be on to 10/24 of this month. So that's in another however many days. But I'm on TikTok right now. So now I'm here going, okay, what did I do? Now, why did I say that? Ladies and gentlemen, there are things that are going on right now in your life. And those things that are going on in your life, some of the things you know exactly what's going wrong. You know you should be doing this. You should be faithful to this. You should be reading this. You should be studying this. But some of the things that you're dealing with right now have absolutely nothing to do with your idea of why it happened. This is why I encourage you to operate at a spiritual level. Why? Because things that are happening on this level do not have the understanding that you think you have. But when you operate in the spirit, it gives you a relevance to how it fits, or perspective to how it fits. Got it? So let's look at Philippians. Now, Philippians is also where Paul talked to the Philippian church and he said, let this mind be in you that was in Christ Jesus. But there's a principle I need you to understand, and this is going to be probably one of the most powerful principles that you deal with in your life. Now, it's in the 3rd chapter in the 7th verse. It's actually the 7th verse and the 13th verse. So the 7th verse says, but what things that were gained to me, those things I count loss for Christ. Now, when you see Christ, you see his access to God. Okay. And then 13 says, brethren, I count myself not to have apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, I reach forth for those things which are before. Verse 14 says, I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling in Christ Jesus. Now, check this out. If you want to go to another level, if you are desiring to see greater things in your life, this terminology says, I count myself not to have apprehended. That means I don't know what I don't know, so I have no ego behind, or I'm not prideful in what I already know. I don't know what I don't know, so I can't act like I know everything. You know, people that think they know everything. People that go, I know. You don't know, because you don't know what you don't know. So you have to be in a perpetual place of teaching. If you're not in that perpetual place of teaching, this is why you're where you are. Because what happens to us, we are convinced that our thought processes, our identity, our ideas, everything that tries to make us the individual that we are is based on information that was given to us. It was never based on information that we took for ourselves or took for granted and took for ourselves and put into perspective. For example, there's this big conversation about the COVID shot. And so every time I'm on here, somebody says to me, have you taken the COVID shot, or are you going to take the COVID shot? The verse is Philippians, the 3rd chapter, the 7th verse. Are you going to take the COVID shot? Are you going to take the COVID shot? And I said to them, two questions I get. Question number 1, am I going to take the COVID shot? Question number 2, should they take the COVID shot? Now, here is where we go back to this thing. Everybody that is asking me, every person that is asking me, ask me for 2 reasons. Number 1, what they've heard about the COVID, and what they're afraid of about the shot. And each person that says that to me never says to me, hey, how do you feel in your spirit about taking the shot? So let me help you out with this. What things I considered gain? I considered I was a smart player. I'm a smart man. I consider myself a great basketball player. I consider myself a runner, tall, handsome. I consider myself all these things. And so what he's saying is, I count myself not to have apprehended. I'm not done with these things. I'm not concluded here. This is not the end. This is merely the beginning. And every day you wake up with new mercies, and those new mercies are a new beginning. You should learn something every day. But I digress. So when they ask me that, I go, when I feel the peace in my spirit to move in that direction, that'll be the time that I move in that direction. Until that time, I don't need to move into that direction. Why? Because while the commotion is going on in society, you should be at peace. The Bible says the principle is, the peace I give to you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. So when you understand that you're not moved by information and moved or swayed by the fear of it, the DNA changing, you're not swayed by that. You are swayed by the movement of the Spirit. Relationships. You're with a man. You like her and he likes you. And you're with him and you're going, should this be the relationship that I deal with? Should I do this? Should I do that? If you're not connected to the Spirit, you are limited in your ability by the fact that you operate in the mind and the physical. Look at this right here. I do this diagram all the time. you're operating in the mind and the physical. So if you're on YouTube, you see it. It's the mind and the physical. So you understand that your superpower is based on your spiritual movement. That's what your superpower is based on. So if you are operating in the mental place and the physical place, you won't understand the movement of the spirit, and you'll be trying to figure out, defined by fear and attached to your past, how to move forward. I get people calling me all the time to go, should I still be with this man? Should I still stay with this woman? And they're looking for a logic behind it. If I don't know by the Spirit, I cannot advise you on that unless I hear both sides. But by the Spirit, you know when to move because your peace is disrupted. And when your peace is disrupted, what you find yourself doing is figuring out how to establish your peace. Does that make sense? Now, Paul said here, and this passage, this principle says, but what things were gained to me, those things I count loss. So those things that I considered my gain, those are my game changers. Those are the things that I think are important in my life. Those things I consider loss for the principles of the Spirit. Got it? Then he goes to 13 and said, brethren, I count myself not to have apprehended. So he said, my identity is not what I established. My mentality is not what I established. Hear me now. My mentality is not what I established. My mentality is not apprehended. I don't know everything. So he said, I count myself not to have apprehended. I don't know everything. So because I don't know everything, I'm learning every day. So if I'm not teachable, I'm not growable. I know that's probably not a word. If I'm not teachable, I'm not grow. If I'm not teachable, I cannot elevate to the next level. So when you go, are you teachable? A lot of people go, yeah, I'm teachable. Yeah, I'm teachable. You're teachable until I say something that touches your little idol or your golden calf. Oh yeah. I talked to one of my good friends about the passage that says this. And the way I said it was in Genesis, when he said it's not good for man to be alone. What's the first thing that God gave man? Now, I didn't say what the first thing God promised man. I said the first thing that God gave man. And they said, woman. No, God gave man the animals. He brought the animals to them. No, you know what I mean? No. I said, no, we're not talking about what you mean. We're talking about what it says. And what it says, nobody is able to explain to me to Genesis 2 and 19. Why? Because if the animals were made in Genesis, the first chapter, why is he making animals in the second chapter? Because he is dealing with assignment. Now, here's the deal. So when you get to that point, if you're not looking at it by the Spirit, you're trying to look at it according to your degrees, according to your theology, according to the Greek and the Hebrew translations, you're going to miss a great portion of this, a large portion of it, because what you're doing is trying to make your mind move like your spirit does. Got that? So after finishing the conversation, she began to see what I was trying to tell her, because what we want to understand is, how do I operate in my superpower? It's by the Spirit, not by your church. There are some of you that are so dedicated to your church that you can't hear in the Spirit. Why? Because if it doesn't come from the person that you consider your leader, it's not right. So some of you are looking at me going, well, I don't understand that. My pastor said this, and my Lord, my deacon said this, or my bishop said this. And some of you are looking at that as if I'm attacking that information. I am not, by no stretch of the imagination. But I am saying to you this: you have to be teachable. You have to be willing to understand that there's a level that you may not know anything about. But the arrogance of humanity feels like we are strong enough and powerful enough, and we in this natural state. It is amazing to me that I was watching a clip from Superman, and they're watching Superman, and the people that come down from Krypton, they're shooting them with guns. Okay, help me out here. Superman bullets don't affect Superman. So what are you doing with your gun trying to shoot this man? What's the deal? I don't get it. You follow me? It's the same thing that's happening right now. There's a definition in church that says doing the same things, expecting different results. If you're getting up every morning doing the exact same thing, and it doesn't point toward the Spirit, it is not going to produce. Because that which is carnal, that which is spirit. The principle that you have to understand that he said, the carnal mind is an enmity unto the spiritual mind. Let's go to Romans. I told you Romans, the two chapters that you're going to start reading about is Romans 6, 7, and 8, as well as Philippians, because they both go, they both go in the same way, the same thing. Okay, so all of Romans, the 8th chapter, all the way down to where it says 8 and 18. Now, verses 8 and 5 says, for they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. Verse 6, for the carnal mind, your regular mind is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the laws of God, neither indeed can be. So, what do you want out of your life? What do you want out of God? You have to see it in the Spirit. So when I read these passages, I'm not reading these passages as the letter or on my Bible teaching. I'm reading them according to the Spirit. So when he says, I count those things I consider gain, those things that make me feel better, make me feel like I'm identifying with something great, those things I have to count out. Why? Because you're only as good as your next sale. You're only as good as your next movement. You're only as good as your next step. If you stay in one place, you're not as good as the next step. So you have to take another step. And that step comes when you begin to study where you are spiritually. It may not be here. There are other books that you need to study to round out your information. Or you are subject to what the world tries to tell you to do and how to do it. You got to start trying stuff. Try scuba, try skydiving, try whatever the thing is. Try whatever it is. Why? Because in the process of trying it, you expand your spirit, but you also expand the ability for your spirit to speak. You have to become vulnerable to the Spirit. Now, he said, those things I consider gain. I'm going to throw a little twist at you. Philippians, the 3rd chapter and the 7th verse. But those things that were gain to me. You have to realize you're not an ex-alcoholic because that's your flesh. You're not an ex-convict because that's your flesh. You're not an ex-anything. What you are is a person that has not met the portion of their life that makes them who they are. See, if you were in a relationship or marriage and you got divorced from the marriage and it was a legitimate reason to get divorced, you were never married. Because what you have to do is the reality of your life is your spirit. So if you were married to somebody and you're not married because they did all, you were never married. That means there's somebody in your life that can put you in a position where you are married. I'm married now. You follow me? Why? Because I don't have an ex-wife. I have one wife. I'm not an ex-alcoholic. I'm one person. I'm not an ex-drug dealer. I'm one. See, the world wants you to stay attached to your past. Why? Because it keeps you slowly moving into what you're supposed to be moving into. So it reminds you, say, oh, you're a felon, you can't do this. And it reminds you, because you were this, you can't do this. If you were caught in any kind of sexual thing, they put that. Everything puts you in a position where you are shackled to your past. So you don't pay attention to your spirit. We are being conditioned not to move in a way that is most powerful for us. You're being conditioned that way. There's information that's out here. There's teaching that's out here. There's all these things that are out here, but you are being conditioned to not live at the height of who you can be. Right. Why? Because the more I decrease you, the more I can use the fact that I know you're powerful, I can use that power for my benefit. The more I know, okay. When you go to the bank to get money for a church. Now, for those of you that don't know, years ago, I haven't been to the bank to get money for a church. Years ago, they would tell me how many members you have, and then they would assign a dollar value to each of your members. which means that that member will bring in a certain amount of money, and this is the amount of money we will loan you according to that member, those members. So if you have 100 members, let's say, and they all pay $1,000, that's $100,000. Okay? So what you have to realize is they go, we'll give you $80,000 because we know you can afford $100,000 in tithing and offering. So basically your power to accumulate determines the direction of the organization. Some people have paid it off early. Some people are still working on it. But that's how it's determined. They know you're powerful. You don't know you're powerful. And because you don't know you're powerful, what happens is you get the same thing that the women that are broken. You get scavengers, opportunists, and predators. They attract it to you. Why? Because you're not in the spirit, so you don't operate in your superpower. You don't see how powerful you actually are because you're a dumb sheep. There are people that have come to a point in their lives that go, why haven't I gotten this? I was supposed to get this. Haven't I got this? Why haven't I got that? Why have I got this? All these things that you talk about have to be placed in a position where you're in the spirit. Now, what happens to, even to me, what happened to me as I was going through all this stuff for knowledge, all the stuff I knew, all the stuff I learned, all the stuff I read, all the stuff I went, and then all of a sudden they changed the game. Because what you have to realize, on this level, you're only as smart as the last piece of information that you gain. You follow me? The IRS is now, and they're doing it now, they're now checking all of your accounts to make sure that the money that you get is being reported. So they're checking your credit card. I just got a call today. They're checking your credit card. They're checking everything to make sure the money that you got was used for the money that was used for what it was used for. The moratorium is over. But if you are in the spirit, then you understand, because something will happen, because it speaks through your an impulse. It speaks through your spirit. It speaks through circumstances. It'll even speak through somebody else. The spirit will get the information to you, and you will hear, you need to stop doing that. You need to stop traveling down that road. You need to stop hanging out with that person. See, women used to call it intuition. We used to call it something told me. That is the spirit protecting you from the next level. Protecting you from the things that's holding you your past. Because once you build confidence in that thing, you have to realize that you won't fall into a lot of traps. Now, things that happen in your life doesn't mean that you messed up. Some things are happening in your life so that you're strong enough to go to the next level. That's it. So you can be strong enough to go to the next level. So if you're not strong enough to go to the next level, he has to teach you strength in that level. When you learn that there's one sacrifice in this world, there's spirit and there's body. There are no other sacrifices. It's not money. The devil is not after your praise. It's not tithing. It's not any of those things. It's you battling the spirit of your mind, getting it to hear free downloads from the spiritual source. Free downloads from the spiritual source. That's why you keep going into the same relationships. That's why you keep going into the same situations. Why? Because somewhere in the spirit, it said turn right. And you refused to turn right because you were so convinced that you knew everything. You were so convinced that your spirit loved this man. You're, oh my God, it's just, I can't. You've never understood that when your spirit says let something go, there is a reason. It is not to curse anything. God is not looking to curse you. He's not looking to hold your sins against you. What he's looking to do is to see you in a place where your value is seen, is recognized, and you can move forward. So it says, those things I can't consider gain, I consider loss for Christ. The gain is not always positive gain. The gain can be negative gain. You lost a baseball game, you're a loser. Because we like to title stuff. We like to put names on stuff. You smoke weed, you're a weed head. You're tall, you're skinny, you're lanky, you're giraffe. We like to put labels on that. You have one label. You're not pastor, you're not apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, or teacher. You are you. And when you understand that you're you, then you begin to live a life like you're you. Then you work your soul salvation out so that the spirit of your mind can receive information from heaven. You can do this. You can receive information from heaven. It is possible. So let me give you a couple of things. So let's look at this thing here. Okay, so the passage says, what things I consider gain. So it talks about 3 or 4 things. Things I consider, things that I value, and things things I consider, things that I value, and things I desire. He said, what things I consider gain. Things I desire, things I value, things I consider. Now, what does that mean? So, you like tall men. Okay? You like tall men. So you pay more attention to tall men than you do to regular sized guys. They're probably not that tall, maybe your same height. So that's the first thing. Now, what that makes you do, it makes you blot out anything else other than those categories. And I'm just using that as an example. So what you have to understand is he was saying, I had to stop thinking that what my thought process was right. You know how light-skinned men are. No, you don't know because you've not met all of them. Well, you know how white people are. No, you don't know because you've not met them all. You know how black. You don't know anything because until you know everything, you know nothing. Until you know everything, you know nothing. But here's the deal. We are so afraid that we're going to get conned, swindled, tricked, that we don't listen to anybody. So then we go to the people that we shouldn't be listening to and we listen to them. Then we get conned, swindled, and tricked. Church is not the basis of your spiritual growth. Church is an introduction to God. It is not your basis for spiritual growth. It is an introduction to God. Every once in a while, you'll come across a pastor that really has a touch and really has a revelation about church. But as a general rule, it's the same structure, just in a different location. When you understand that Christianity is not a point of satisfaction. It's a point of being pacified. You can't be a Christian and still do things God understands my heart. Yeah, but that's Christian heart. That's Islam heart. That's Buddhist heart. That's identifying to a name so that you can isolate yourself from everybody else. That's identifying to a name so you can isolate everybody else. You have access to every dime you want. You have access to healing. You have access to deliverance, access to restoration for your children. You have access to that. But what are you willing to sacrifice to get that? Money is not a sacrifice. Money is leverage. So when you have money, you just have leverage. That means you can leverage something. But what are you willing to sacrifice to get this brother to another level, to get this sister to another level? Are you willing to sacrifice time and prayer? Stop calling yourself your past. Stop attaching yourself to your past. Well, I'm just a little ex-drug dealer. No, you're not. You're you. You're a child of God. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things have become new. Your whole environment has changed because your environment is not based on where you are right now. It's based on where you are in the spirit. It's not based on where you are right now. It's based on where you are in the spirit. So if you are in the spirit sitting at a desk watching me, that's your location right now. That's the place that you deal with right now. That makes sense? Okay. Now, all of this is going to be on the YouTube page. So let me read this and we're going to close this out. Let me read this. Let's go back to Romans first. Let's go to Romans. Let me read this and then we're going to close this out. Now, I learned something about Paul and I learned something about Paul and I learned something about Moses. So Moses represented church. Joshua represented Christianity. And then as they go into the promised land, that represents Christ. So we have to live those lives. Okay, so Romans, the 6th, 7th, 8th chapter, 4, 8 and 18. I need you to remember this. If you don't remember anything I say to you, I need you to remember this passage. It says, For I reckon not that the sufferings of these present times are not to be worthy to be compared. Yeah, not worthy to be compared with the glory that shall be revealed inside of you. So he's saying what you are dealing with doesn't even compare. What you are dealing with doesn't even compare. You follow me? So now you're dealing with this situation with your ex-husband. Remember, no exes. You're dealing with this thing with your ex-wife. Why? Because you don't want to suffer, you don't want to hurt, so you'll deal with this person and stay with this person, all in the name of making sure you don't hurt. Or you'll have a baby because you go, oh, I want somebody to love me. Ladies, let me help you out. When you are married, the love you carry inside your life is for your husband. Though then you and he love the child. But if you are carrying the weight of loving the child, honey, you are not in the right place. And something needs to be said. Somebody needs to have a discussion. All right? Okay. Somebody needs to have a discussion. Now, I'm going to leave this at about 30 minutes. Let me finish this last passage and then we're going to get out of here. Verse 12 and verse 13 is, brethren, I count myself not to have apprehended. Verse 12 says, not as though I have already attained, either are already perfect. But I follow after, if that I may apprehend that which is also I am apprehended of. He said, I'm striving so hard that me trying to apprehend the principles of the Spirit actually overtake me, and the principles of the Spirit are a part of me. Because he's trying to overtake you, you're trying to overtake him, but we go in other directions, and he goes, I got the bottle of water right here. All you have to do is get up under it. Everything else is taken care of. So what you have to realize in that is, he said, not as though I've already attained. I cannot stress this enough. The conferences that we have, the teachings that we have, are not to make you feel though you attain, though you will learn something. But they're there to help you get in line with what God has for you. Then he says, brethren, I count myself not to have apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind. That is a skill all to itself. That's a battle all to itself. Forgetting those things which are behind. Why? Because when you forget them, you take away their power. When you forget them, you take away their hindrance. You lay aside the weights. You put them to the side. When you forget them, you give yourself a new life and a new way to move. When you forget them. If you don't forget them, they become a part of your conscious existence. And when you go to a relationship, you start looking at this man and start thinking, well, maybe and maybe and maybe and maybe, because you've not let that thing go, so it becomes a part of your existence. Let it go. Forget those things and push. Give yourself 30 days. Good catch. Give yourself 30 days. Every morning for the next 7 days, get up and pray. Every morning. Find you a dedication place, find you a time, and every morning you get up and you give God that time. Whether you give it through him sleeping, praying, do something for him. Why? Because you got to reestablish the report from the headquarters, which is your spirit. And when you report, when you get back to that point, you're beginning to see God move like you've never seen him move before. I promise you. I promise you. You will see him move like you've never seen him move before. But you have to give him something to work with. You got to give him access. You got to give him your ear. You have to give him your eyes. You got to let your spirit and your unction be prepared to hear it. When you do that, you will see God like you've never seen God before. You will see God like you've never seen God before. Okay? Now, that's it for you guys on YouTube. That's it for today. Tomorrow, Monday, Wednesday. On Wednesday, we do the 10 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock at night. But tonight, I'm going to do some things to give you guys some notes and some things to study so you can be ready for what we're going to do on next Tuesday. Next Monday. All right? Now, For those of you that are on TikTok, those of you that are on Instagram, stay here. I got to do my closing, and then we'll go to them. Okay, so thank you very much for being here. Subscribe, like, follow. Make sure you hit the bell so that when I do a show or do a broadcast, you can get there. This broadcast is up for you. It is there to benefit you. It's there to help you. I thank God for you. I praise God for everything that's going on. I pray for you, and Father, I bless them to open up doors that they cannot close and send them down into situations that will change everything about them. I love you, God. I love them. And I see you guys on Wednesday, unless you're on TikTok. Then